I would like to invite Jim Adams to help to assist me with the land acknowledgement.
Thank you very much. That term land acknowledgement is really kind of fraught with problems in that often institutions will use it as a way of getting a kind of like a get out of jail free card. So really what we want people to reflect on individually is why are they grateful to be on Turtle Island? Why are they grateful to be on this land? What do they have to be thankful for this day? Is it where their food comes from? Is it the education? What is it that they're grateful for? Because we really need to start to write those relations between we as two-leggeds, as human beings, and that natural world out there. It's really out of balance. And we're really beginning to feel the effects of that. So instead of me listing off all the people who used to live here, I will just list off one person who lives here now, which is me. Many hats. Kakatiwi Masquas Awanakawote. I'm a Eagle Clan and a member of the Swampy Cree up on James Bay and the Innu on the other side. And I have two grandchildren and two children. And I'm grateful for the fact that I have these children and that they're here, that I can teach them some of the things that I was taught by my elders and my traditional knowledge keepers, that we need to only take what we need and not anymore. We need to be respectful. We need to show kindness every day. That's pretty much all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jim. And I would like now to invite the co-partner of this session, Kevin Lee, with whom I am working for the last few years. It's great pleasure to work with Jim on this capacity and creating together the energy and the talent expertise he brings, really very valuable. Kevin, floor is yours.
Perfect. Thank you, Tarana. Hey, everyone. My name is Kevin. I'm from the Center for Immigrants and Community Services. I'm the program manager to oversee our volunteer programs in children and youth services. So just to read the quick, Tarana, can you share the screen again just to put up the objective? Just want to list out the objective of this webinar and how it came to be. Just give a quick introduction to everyone. So this webinar will deepen understanding of Indigenous history, and the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, or TRC for short, calls to action that are relevant to youth work, while also exploring the unique challenges Indigenous youth face in both urban and on-reserve contexts. Participants will learn about inclusive services and practices that foster cultural identity, belonging, and resilience, as well as ways to build meaningful connections between Indigenous and newcomer youth through shared initiatives. The session will also showcase practical examples of reconciliation and allyship in action with a focus on youth engagement and community leadership. So that's the objective of the webinar, and just some context as to how it came to be and how this was brought up was this webinar was inspired by a conversation between myself and Tarana about creating connections between Indigenous communities and newcomers. I feel like that's a very valuable lesson or I guess a teaching that we should definitely introduce to newcomers, because newcomers often have very busy lives, right? That includes, let's say, getting a job, right? Or settling in their communities. But I feel like this part is often missed by a lot of newcomers and the people that we work. And actually, this webinar matters because we actually have, I just want to share that we actually have a youth worker focused on building these connections, and you'll shortly hear from her. But so her role in this in our organization is to really build those connections and introduce Indigenous heritage and culture to our newcomers. And it's recommended, if possible, to have someone dedicated to this, as it takes a lot of time and effort to do some planning, programming, connecting with Indigenous organizations, right, with their youth. So this is just some webinar to kind of showcase what we've learned so far and what you can take back to your organizations to implement, perhaps even in your own kind of practices, right? And our vision is to obviously build an understanding for this webinar. We want newcomers and Indigenous peoples to learn from each other, right? Because newcomers often bring some kind of knowledge from their own countries or from their own culture. So we want to really build that connection and build a mutual respect and meaningful connection for this, for that connection to happen, right? And us as service providers, right? Many of us here today, is to really get that build a bridge to kind of bridge the gap that's happening, right? So, and obviously in this webinar, it doesn't come without kind of talking about the challenges, right? There's organizational barriers such as limited resources. Many of you may not have a youth worker or have funding to kind of, fund a youth worker specifically to kind of tackle this connection piece, right? There's competing priorities, right? Capacity issues. And also community engagement, right? Building trust with Indigenous partners takes time and then lots of sensitivity to make sure that the connection is authentic, right? Not just like, hey, we're just going to say hi once and that's it, right? We really want to build that authenticity and make sure that it's there. And also program design, right? We want to make sure our activities are culturally respectful and relevant to any of the topics that happen, right? So we want to, it just does really take time and effort, and we'll share some of those challenges and after this. And of course, there's a few things. I don't want to take too much time off from Nikki's time to kind of share about the stuff, right? What we tried is obviously we've had the initial steps to outreach to Indigenous organizations, co-hosting cultural learning sessions with youth. What did work was a lot of the small group discussions and storytelling sessions did work. We did have Jim here. We actually partnered with him before, come in to talk with some of our newcomer children about the cultural practices, the arts, and Indigenous heritage and stuff like that. But what didn't work was the lack of follow-up, right? Sometimes we just don't have time to implement more programming, stuff like that, and I'm sure Nikki will cover some of that after. And again, I hope some takeaways everyone takes away from this webinar on top of the objectives I kind of listed already was, this is like a starting point, right? This will not solve our problems after today. We're not going to, have our, organizations do a lot of stuff that involves Indigenous heritage, like connecting newcomers with Indigenous heritage. Like, of course, this webinar won't provide that for you, but it's a stepping stone, right? It's a good kind of the start to have it at least in your minds, right, as to how we can make that connection happen. And it's definitely a shared responsibilities. Maybe this can build us to have more collaborations, right? Maybe we can have some more conversations around this topic as to how we can strengthen our newcomer communities to dive deeper to learn about the culture and heritage, because I believe that's a very important part of what it means to be quote unquote Canadian. Right. But yeah, without further ado, Tarana, can you share the screen again? I'm just going to quickly introduce Nikki. Perfect. So before I pass over to Nikki, I did want to introduce her. So Nikki is the Volunteer Indigenous Connections Program Coordinator at the Center for Immigrant and Community Services. She leads volunteer engagement, community programs, and youth-focused initiatives that support diverse community members, including newcomers and low-income families. Her work focuses on building meaningful connections, strengthening community capacity, and advance equity-driven programs across Scarborough and the GTA. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Nikki to kind of say a few things about her role and what she's done so far in her position. So Nikki, over to you.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Nikki, and thanks, Kevin, for the introduction, and thanks, Jim, for the land acknowledgement. And also thanks OCASI, Tarana, for bringing us all together today. So my role is really about supporting newcomer youth as they learn about the land they are living on and about Indigenous peoples and history in Canada. A lot of newcomer youth arrive with a very little background in this area. And honestly, I was the same when I just came here. So this job has been a learning journey for me. When I just joined CICS, I noticed right away that youth were curious. They wanted to know about Indigenous history, and they just didn't know where to start or didn't have a safe space to ask questions. So a lot of what I try to do is just simply create the first point of connection, somewhere they feel comfortable to listen, to ask, to reflect. And our partnership with Indigenous organizations are still growing. But over the past few months, we're trying to different things to see what really resonates with youth. One of the most impactful activity was a storytelling workshop with Jim. And I first met Jim at one of his sessions and later invited him to our summer camp. The youth love it. His teaching style is warm, open, and very inviting. Many youth said it was the first time they understood that Canada has a much longer story beneath the one they've heard in school. And we also did a nature walk and some land-based learning. It was simple, a walk with some teachings, learning Indigenous plant names, but it was powerful to watch the youth connect with the land in a more meaningful way, sometimes for the first time. And we held some small reconciliation circles. These were casual conversations. No pressure to know the right answer. Youth share honestly, even if they understand was just the beginning. And that's what we are aiming for, curiosity and openness. What I've noticed is that when you create the right type of environment, youth naturally move towards understanding and empathy. We don't have to force it. And of course, this work isn't as smooth as it sounds. A big challenge is partner capacity. A lot of Indigenous-led organizations are stretched very thin, and we can't expect them to guide us through everything. Partnerships take patience and respect. Another challenge is time. Trust doesn't happen one email or just one workshop. We are still building those relationships slowly. And also, newcomer youth all start from different places. Some are excited, some are worried about saying the wrong thing, and some find the history overwhelming. So we try to keep things approachable and not too heavy at all once. But even with these challenges, I've seen so much positive energy. When youth learn something new about the land or about the Indigenous community, their eyes just light up. The curiosity is what keeps me going. And I'm gonna share some experience working with Jim. And Jim has been amazing support for me in this role. He shared a lot of knowledge and helped me understand the different reality Indigenous youth face, whether in the city or on reserve. His storytelling approach has really shaped the way I design programs, focusing more on relationships and listen rather than information dumping. Looking ahead, I hope we can continue building more partnerships, create programs that bring newcomer and the Indigenous youth together, explore more land-based learning, and eventually support youth-led reconciliation initiatives. None of this will happen overnight, but every step counts. I won't talk too much here today because we have two amazing speakers coming right after me. They each bring such meaningful perspective to this work. And I'm really glad everyone here will get to learn from them directly. And thank you again to everyone. I really see today not just a webinar, but as an ongoing conversation we were taking part in. I'm grateful to be doing this work, and I'm looking forward to more collaboration and more opportunity to bring newcomer and indigenous youth together in a meaningful way. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nikki. And now I would like to introduce our next speaker, Jim Adams, Indigenous artist and educator, he, him. Jim Adams is a storyteller, spoken word artist, writer, and facilitator of Cree, Inuit, and Welsh ancestry. Known by his Cree name as Astoitin Mistohi, meaning many hats, Jim brings creativity and insight to every circle he leads. With a background in writing, photography, painting, and printmaking, he uses the art as tools for communication, reflection, and connection. Holding a master's degree in education in Indigenous education from York University, and multiple diplomas and degrees in fine arts, journalism, and adults literacy education, Jim blends academic knowledge with lived experience. For over 15 years, he has delivered culturally grounded workshops for organizations such as the Toronto Public Library, Jamie Espelada, Project Canoe, and TIFF, working with participants of all ages and abilities, guided by the belief that everything we need we have been given. Jim's approach honors inclusivity, community, and the power of storytelling to heal and inspire. Jim, please, floor is yours.
Thank you so much. So I was given a bunch of questions. I don't know if anyone has those questions, if they're going to ask me the questions, or if I'm going to read the question out and provide the answer myself. How would you like me to do that?
You go ahead and feel comfortable. I would actually suggest saying aloud the questions and then replying to the questions would be probably more clear for the participants as well.
Okay, I will do that. So the first thing that we wanted to know was share a bit about your personal and professional journey and how you came to work with Indigenous youth. So I've been doing this work for over 20 years. I started as a storyteller, working with organizations like the Brickworks, and doing storytelling sessions on the National Indigenous Day on the June 21st. And that grew to where I was working with organizations like Story Planet, JAMI, Toronto Public Library, through my organization, Red Bear. And it was really important that that the youth, not just youth, but young ones all the way up to adults, were really hungry for stories. That's one of the things I could see. They were hungry for our stories, hungry to find out who we were, what we knew, and what I could share with them. That's kind of at where I am right now. Next question is, from your perspective as an elder. I'm not an elder. I'm only chosen an elder by my community. I am a traditional knowledge keeper, so I'm going to rephrase that question and say, from your perspective as a knowledge keeper, why is it important to include Indigenous knowledge in newcomer programs? It's a program because I think one of the things that Toronto said, someone had mentioned, or no, it was Nikki, someone had mentioned that when they had come, that the history of this program of Canada wasn't just one pager that they get in a history book. It's much deeper. And so I think it's really important for newcomers to know the actual history that went on here, to know that there were people that were here that covered Turtle Island all the way from Guatemala, all the way up to the top of Alaska. On either side, there were over 180 million of us at one point. It's a lot of people. So we were here. We were not newcomers. We did not discover this land. We were this land, and this land was us and still is very much us. And it's important that they understand that. It's important that they know that our language is important for us to share and to grow, because from our language comes everything. To know our history, to know that our children were taken away from us. And that's where a lot of our problems stem from. And that's where we can begin to talk to them. I mentioned that later on in my talk about trauma. So they have a better understanding of why things are the way that they are. The next question that they had, or the next block of questions, is challenges Indigenous youth face. What are some of the main challenges Indigenous youth face in urban areas? It's seeing himself reflected in those areas, whether it's in a classroom, a community space, or whatever. They don't see themselves reflected. They don't see who they are. That's changing bit by bit, but they really don't see it. And so that's one of the things that it needs to change, to see themselves reflected, to hear their language, to see images of themselves, of their culture. That would be very, very helpful. And it's also difficult to get access to things like internet. Some of these people have come, some of the youth, Indigenous youth have come from reserves. There weren't a lot of jobs on the reserves, so they're coming here trying to find a way to build a family, a way to get a job, a way to get an education, and trying to fit into the systems that are there. And they have no ability to do that because there were no accesses to those on the reserve. We're also funded at a third less than any other group in Canada, so that affects our ability to access those services. But really, it's I think having them see themselves there, and to find a way to see themselves reflected and to use that as a way of dealing with the trauma that they faced probably from the time they were born. Yeah, I think that's it for urban. And for next question is, what challenges are unique to Indigenous youth living on a reserve? Well, same thing, access to services, access to internet. They don't have that. Access to health services on many of the reserves. The governments, whether it's federal or provincial, are reducing health services. There are a lot of schools that only go up to grade 6, maybe grade 9, and then you have to go to high school off reserve. So that's really dangerous sometimes, especially if you're going to certain areas that are known to be highly racist, like Thunder Bay. So it's really, really difficult. It can be very frightening to live there if you have to move off to go to school, because you're leaving your family behind. You're leaving everything you grew up with behind, and you only come home in the summers. That's it. So that's a real problem. And if there are reserve youth that have not left that situation or moved to urban areas, they're carrying all that with them. So if they've come from, I don't know, let's say Fort Albany, and they're going to school in Toronto, they're going to need some people here to help them fit in, to meet the community, to find people that are reflected in who they are. Otherwise, they're just going to have more trauma added onto that which already exists. How do financial and travel-related barriers affect opportunities for Indigenous youth in education, health, and employment? Well, boy, I could keep you here all day on that one. Financial and travel-related barriers, it's very expensive to fly. So if you're flying from Fort Albany down to even Temagami, it's like $500 a flight. And it's the only way to get there because there are no roads. You have to fly. There's no employment on reserves. So if you're coming down, you're getting the money that's allotted to you from the band and council, if indeed they have any money to allot for your travel. Education is affected because many reserves, like I said, only go up to grade 6. Many of them don't even have a health clinic anymore. And in terms of employment, if you're not working for the band and council, there really aren't a lot of jobs there. Some are expanding and using ecotourism, which is great to see. That's wonderful, but there's not enough of them doing it quite yet. Learning and reconciliation. How can understanding Indigenous history and the TRC calls to action help youth workers and organizations improve their programming? Well, I think just being aware of what the impact of the Indian Act was, it spells it out in the TRC. And being aware that trauma is very, very much a part of Indigenous youth lives. They may have grown up in single-family homes. They may have been in the child welfare system. Matter of fact, that's the first one that the TRC starts off with. They start off with their legacy program and start talking about child welfare and how many Indigenous youth there are in the child welfare program. It's quite a number. We talk about health with Jordan's principle. Our Prime Minister, Carney, just reduced the amount of money available for Jordan's principle. That's a principle, in case you're not aware of it, where there was a boy named Jordan who had a particular illness. And the province, they don't say which province, but the federal government and the province were fighting over who would pay for it. And they fought over the money for so long that the boy died. And so there was a huge outcry about it. And so they brought in Jordan's principle, which said whenever there's a First Nations child in need of care, give them the care first and worry about paying for it second. But now Carney has said that he's reducing the amount of money for Jordan's principle. Again, we're being seen through a second-class lens. You don't have to worry about Indigenous people. It's okay. We can come in and reduce it and take their children and not let them get the health care that they're getting. The youth understand a lot of the problems. And they know that, education is certainly something they're trying to get, but it can be really, really difficult to access it if you're not seen in the classroom, if you're not if you're not allowed to have a voice, and if the teachers don't understand your trauma. So if you come in every day, supposing you come in every day and you're late every day because you're the oldest child and you have to get all the other children off to work because mom and dad have already left for work at like 4 a.m. You work 2 jobs. So how do you explain that to your teacher? I'm late every day. I'm going to be late every day because I have to get my brothers and sisters off to school. I have to make their lunches. They're afraid to say it. Why are they afraid to say it? Because the teacher will then call Child and Family Services, and they may come in and break that whole family up. So they won't tell them. They'll just keep getting bad marks and keep being thought of as being a bad student because they don't want to rat their family out. They want their family together. These are problems that they don't talk about. They're huge problems. Huge, huge problems. What do you see as an effective way, to bridge understanding between Indigenous and newcomer youth? I think, just as Nikki had mentioned, I think having people get together to chat, to have small groups, to start to build these relationships and to do things together, to do, picnics, have storytelling sessions, summer camps, all of these things where they come in and try to have things there where they can see themselves reflected in what's going on around them. So I visited the site where Nikki works, and I saw where they had an Indigenous garden, and it was great because the kids could see themselves reflected in that garden. And even if they didn't know about it, there was a way of passively introducing them to it so that they wouldn't feel ashamed that they didn't know their culture. I was really, really impressed with that. And finally, inclusive services and belonging. Can you share examples of inclusive youth services that strengthen cultural identity and belonging for youth, Indigenous youth? Yeah, there are a lot of youth services. If we look at Toronto Council Fire, it's the only friendship center in Toronto, but it has amazing programs for Indigenous youth. The Native Canadian Center has programming for youth. So those are two programs that I would definitely check out. There is the Wandering Spirit School that is strictly for Indigenous students. They will let non-Indigenous students in, but it's primarily for Indigenous students, and it reflects Indigenous culture. And they have a great track record of success with working with Indigenous students. And finally, what role can newcomer serving organizations play in supporting reconciliation through their programs? I think just presenting programming in an inclusive way, letting people know it's open to everybody. Everybody can join, whether you're Indigenous or not. Programming's there. Everybody needs to learn. We need to share. We need to build these relationships and have them inclusive. And that's pretty much all I've got. Hopefully it was helpful.
Thank you very much, Jim. I will now introduce our next speaker, Sam Asholi. Moved to Canada from Nigeria at 7-year-old and grew up in Rexdale community housing with his mother and 3 brothers. Sam started playing basketball to keep himself out of trouble, but at 11-year-old, he fell in love with the game. Sam rose to become one of the Canada's top basketball players through hard work and daily practice. He earned a full basketball scholarship at Duquesne University in Petersburg, graduated with a bachelor's degree in communication and then a social work degree from Ryerson University, now is TMU. Sam went through many barriers and challenges, but did not give up on his dream. Now a motivational speaker, program manager, and registered social worker, Sam is dedicated to inspiring at-risk youth. Through Beyond the Court, he shares his story of resilience and hope, offering workshop and motivational speaking to empower youth to achieve their dreams. Sam, floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Hi, as Tara said, my name's Sam Ashlew. I migrated here when I was about 7 years old. I grew up in Rexdale, the west end of Toronto, a very tough neighborhood, a lot of poverty, a lot of crime, a lot of violence. And I was almost getting pulled in the wrong way, but lucky thing, I found my passion for basketball. I found my love for basketball and I dedicated myself to it. I started working hard. I met a coach where he pushed me. He turned me on the right way and started pushing me and turned my life into going to school, getting my education right. And after all that hard work, staying dedicated, staying focused on my dream, I ended up being one of the top high school basketball players. And I got a full scholarship to Duquesne University in Pittsburgh. And things don't go that smooth, when everything goes going good. I got my scholarship, but obviously there's ups and downs. Unfortunately, 2 weeks into university, I was on my way to doing good, being a professional basketball player, achieving my dream. 2 weeks into school, me and 4 of my teammates who were coming from a campus party, and me and 4 of my teammates had got shot, and I got shot twice in my head, and I was in a coma. I wasn't supposed to make it, but with my hard work and dedication, I was able to recover from the hospital. Get back into school. Got my first degree from Duquesne University in communications, a minor in sociology. And I came back and got my second degree from Ryerson, which is TMU now, in social work. So that's what I do now. I work. I also go around. Starting in 2015, I started my own organization called Beyond the Court. It's focused on helping Black and Indigenous youth that are growing up in marginalized communities, growing up in poverty with lack of resources. And I help provide resources, advocate for Black and Indigenous kids and youth in the school system, in the community, and we do a lot of different things. Like a lot of the main programs that we do run, the 4 pillars of Beyond the Court is running programs like life skills, education, employment, and financial literacy. I feel that if the youth masters those 4 pillars, they'll be very successful in their future and they'll be able to earn their goals. So those are the 4 things that we focus on and try to help a lot of youth with also advocating and circle talks and counseling and trying to bridge the gap with different other cultures and things like that, to learn about each other's culture. So those are some of the things that we also do there. As a founder of Beyond the Court, one of my main things I do is doing motivational speaking, sharing my story with different youth in the city, just sharing about my struggles. But my main thing was just never giving up on my dreams. And I try to tell youth, Black and Indigenous youth, that, just you got to find something that you're passionate about, find something that you love doing, and it won't feel like it's work. So just find something that you're passionate about, find something that you love doing, and you'll be able to, you'll never want to give up you never want to give up on their dream. Even though you're gonna go through some hard times, but you're never gonna want to give up, because that's something that you're passionate about, it's something that you love. Just like what I did with basketball. I went through a lot of ups and downs, but I didn't give up. So that's just something I'm stuck with. Just like how I overcame being in the hospital, getting shot twice. It's just something I'm passionate about. I just never want to give up on graduating, get my degree, and making my mom proud. So I try to teach all the other youth, especially Black and Indigenous youth, that even though they're going through hard times, things are not fair. But if you just keep staying focused on your dream, stay dedicated, you'll be able to achieve your dream. And that's what we do. We also do a lot of things like workshops. We do a lot of basketball camps in the summertime for youth, try to keep them engaged, keep them doing positive things. And basketball is just not something that we just run for just playing sports, but we also teach them a lot of skills in basketball, like hard work, dedication, resilience, communication. All those things they can use outside the basketball court. They can use to further their career, to be more successful in all the dreams they want to achieve. So those are some of the stuff I do. So one of the last things that we really do with Beyond the Court is one of our main things is we focus on working on Indigenous youth, especially in the main community that we work in the Jane and Finch community. There's a lot of Indigenous youth around there, Indigenous and Black youth around there. So we focus on that. One of my main stories was working with the indigenous youth that was a lot in the justice system. He was wrapped up in a lot of the street activities, and I seen something in him. I seen like he'll come to our center a few times, or just drop in and drop out. But I seen something in him. I seen that he had the talent to achieve his dream. If I just get him focused on going to school and doing what he's supposed to do, I feel that he could be very successful. So, I worked with him, got him to come to Beyond the Court, got him involved in our programs like education and employment, helped them get back in school, helped them get a part-time job, so, he can have money in his pocket, so, get some things he wanted to do. And after helping him achieve those things, he was able to be successful. For him not going to school before, for now him going to school, he was able to, with me advocating for him in the school system, he was able to get the right support, and successfully he was able to graduate, and now he is at Humber College right now. So that's one of my main stories I have, working with Black and Indigenous youth and just helping them. That's one of my main stories I always remember whenever somebody asks me what's one of my top goals. That's one of my top goals I remember in my head, from bringing this kid that was just involved in the street life, involved involved in just not going to school, hanging around with a bad crowd, to turning him around to be able to go to school, get the right support. Now he's at Humber College. Those are one of the main things I remember in my life. So, and before I finish my stories, one of the main things I ended up doing this summer was speaking out for Javai Roy. Javai Roy was an 8-year-old Black and Indigenous youth who had got shot in his house. from a random shooting, got shot in his house. And I was one of the keynote speakers to advocate for gun violence in Toronto. I spoke about how much the gun violence is in the city, and what our president and our government could do to lower these gun violence. I think Tara has a small clip of me speaking. I don't know if we can play it for you guys, but oh, that would be good for you guys to see a little bit of what I did this past summer, speaking against gun violence in the city.
But do you feel safe? Nobody's exempted. June the 6th was the City of Toronto's National Day against gun violence. I don't even know what to think about that. It sounds like a joke to me. Every single day, somebody is losing like the gun violence in Toronto. Come on, people. We need to do better than this. SafeTO received an annual budget of $43 million, plus an additional $5 million on top of that. SafeTO was to ensure the Torontonians felt safe and have a sense of well-being by bringing together governments, schools, community groups, and local leaders to create a safe environment for all. But do you feel safe? Does anybody feel safe out here? No. I find this pretty alarming.
Sam, do you want to say something about that video? And the presentation seems was cut short.
Yeah, that was just I was called to be one of the keynote speakers to advocate for Jabari Roy. As I said, it was an 8-year-old kid that was Black and Indigenous youth that was shot and killed in his house. So I was called to advocate against gun violence in Toronto. So I just came there to share some of my story, the gun violence that I face, and how I was able to overcome that. And I'm just speaking, just telling everybody there that the city needs to do more to lower gun violence, get more programs in the communities, work with more of these at-risk youth, and to help them to be able to achieve their dream, be more successful, instead of turning to the streets when there's nothing to do. There's no positive programs, no positive activities out there. That's what they're going to do. They're going to turn their life around and do stuff if there's nothing to bring them in. So that's what I was just advocating for, and that's what I was speaking about that summer.
Thank you very much, Sam. And now I believe we do have internally few questions to Jim and Sam. And please, all participants, you can raise your hand and I will give you mic to speak. But right now I have one question at the question and answer section. It talks about how this session is important and valuable. And we have very limited knowledge on challenges faced by Indigenous youth. We need more engagement. We would like to connect and engage Indigenous youth in our youth wellness program. This is specifically at Danforth Avenue, but I am sure many other participants are curious and interested to connect and do so. If you connect with an Indigenous youth group would be great. And this person, Hazima Akhtar, provides her email. I would like to start with Jim and then maybe pass on to Sam. How service provider, newcomer settlement service providers can engage Indigenous youth in their wellness program? How we can reach out Indigenous youth?
Well, I think one of the ways that you can do that is to go to the couple of the centers that I mentioned. So Native Canadian Center at Spadina and Bloor, and Council Fire at Parliament in Dundas. and go in and speak to their executive directors and tell them what you have to offer. They're always looking at co-sponsoring and co-working with other people. Creating allyships, very, very big on doing that. So that would be the first place that I would suggest you go.
Sam, would you like to speak for that?
Yeah. Yeah, the way they could collaborate more is, I think, doing a lot more outreach, going to like a lot of the community centers and where a lot of the Black and Indigenous kids are, and going to outreach and reaching out to them, and just getting them more together, getting more programs together, more workshops together where they can be together, have circle talks, and have meet each other, become friends, and they could hopefully start something themselves, like giving back into their communities, working with other Indigenous kids and inviting them out to the program, have something that's fun for them to come to, and they want to come to it, they want to engage in it. I think those are some of the main things that would bring Indigenous people more together and provide them with more services they can use to be more successful in life and things like that. So I think that's one of the main things you can use. And that's kind of what we do at Beyond the Court. We try to get outreach. Like this summer, we ran a back to school barbecue and giveaway, and a lot of people came, and a lot of people that didn't know each other became friends, and a lot of kids became friends, and it was very fun and exciting. So those are some things that we
co-host now. Sam, would you mind to provide your contact information if you feel comfortable? Participant can reach out to you.
Sure. I'll put it in the chat.
Them? Because in my experience also, it is very difficult to invite Indigenous youth without Hananari. We should have, and we understand that we have to cover some costs, but also service providers usually doesn't have extra additional budget.
Yeah.
And
yeah, that's the main thing. Yeah, that's what I talked about at there's a lot of budget cuts and things like that. And we have to go around to a lot of different people before we ran that back school barbecue and giveaway. The city of Toronto Community Housing, the city councilor. You just have to keep going around to different people. You can't just go to one person or something like that. You got to go around to a lot of different people, let them know what you're trying to do in the community, how you're trying to help these type of youth and things like that, and they should be able to help you run that, to keep the youth engaged and things like that. So
any other questions, Kevin?
Yeah, I got a few questions just from listening. Thank you for your presentations, Nikki, Jim, and Sam. Very insightful as to how we can potentially work with more Indigenous organizations, and definitely with their youth, and not just youth, I guess, with their families and other members as well. I have a question for Jim. I think this is a good question for some of us who don't already know. For me, for example, can you just clarify the difference between elder and knowledge keeper? Because sometimes when we reach out to Indigenous organizations as newcomer organizations, we may not know the difference, and we just want to get the context of that. That's my first question to Jim.
Okay, well, I'll quote my former executive director, Sylvia Miracle, who said, "Not every old Indian you meet will be an elder, and not every elder you meet will be an old Indian." So elders they carry knowledge, more than just traditional knowledge. A great deal of experience. Sometimes they're born bringing this knowledge onto the earth, and so it's the community that will call them that. I cannot call myself that, and it has to be your community. It has to be, the gifts that you bring in. That's the difference. The traditional knowledge keepers, I can study with someone maybe doing traditional things, like maybe making birch bark canoes or something, and so I gather traditional knowledge. So I'm a traditional knowledge keeper in that particular area, but I'm not an elder, because I haven't had the lived experiences to be called an elder.
Thank you for clarifying that. Yeah, and my second question would be, can you just list some of the program examples you've done with organizations in the past? For example, some, potentially any, aside from our summer camp program that you came in to do a story sharing session, what are some other sessions you've done, and potentially some examples that you can think of that other organizations that are here today can do with other Indigenous organizations and stuff like that.
Well, I think it's really important for when I said about making sure that our schools and institutions are trauma informed. One of the things we can do is introduce Indigenous education in a kind of fun way. So one of the things that I do where I bring in science is to do constellations, and I photograph the constellations and then I can project them on the ceiling. We tell a story about the constellation and why it's important to that particular culture, whether it's Cree or Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe. And so that's one way of bringing in culture. We often use food, so I'll make bannock with them. We'll talk about bannock, talk about the fur trade. And it's a great way for newcomers as well as a lot of Indigenous students who don't know their history to learn it in a fun way.
Mhm. Yeah, those sounds like great programs to definitely implement, definitely in schools too. That would be something, of course, I don't know if there's any teachers in the room, but definitely something we can implement in the programs that we do with our newcomers in our sessions, right? And then I have a few questions for Sam. Sam, I was wondering, just focusing on Indigenous youth challenges, do you see anything specific from your work with Indigenous youth? Is there any challenges you see that points up more? I know Jim shared some from his end, but just running from your end, is there any specific challenges that kind of, you know, go out there more as opposed to some other ones? Yeah.
Yeah, some of the ones I've seen is lack of resources for Indigenous youth. And the school system is like they don't get pushed enough in the school system, and some is given up on. Some of the teachers already gave up on them, so it's a lot of people's job to just advocate for their youth, especially Indigenous youth, advocate for them, provide them the type of resources that everybody else gets, so everybody could be on an even playing field and have the chance to be successful. So those are some things I see working with Indigenous Black youth. Yes.
Hmm. And what are some ways that you've done to kind of alleviate these challenges? I mean, I know you said some already, but as to this specific challenge, what are some ways that you think um, organizations can help them better in a way, or you know, how can newcomer organizations kind of um, collaborate with these youth and stuff like that? Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like some of them, like a way to collaborate is to reach out, get out to them. They're not gonna come to you. You gotta like kind of go to them. A lot of outreach, and trying to speak with like different school boards and things like that, and advocating for the youth. Tell them that like they need this type of support. They need this, and just advocating for them, and just keep persistent and advocating for them. And that same thing, just getting out to reach them, running programs they'll be interested in, have some food that they like, they'll want to come, bring their friends or more people to come, and yeah, just make it exciting, make it be able to learn. And those are some of the main things that we do at Beyond the Court.
Mhm. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And I guess my last question for you, Sam, is knowing both Black and Indigenous youth are both from marginalized communities, what would you say what's the main one, I guess, challenge they both share together as, when you work with both populations?
Yeah, one thing I see from both of them is just lack of resources, especially especially in their community. If you go to one community center, you go to one community center and you go to another one's community center, like say downtown in like a very impoverished neighborhood, you'll see the difference exactly from when you come in. Less resources, less programs, less rooms, less staff, less everything there. So they get just the limited everything, and it's just hard. That's why some of them turn around to doing other things and stuff like that, because there's not enough stuff there for them to engaging, and them and their friends, and they just start to do other things. So those are some things I've seen working with a lot of Black and Indigenous youth.
Mhm. Perfect. Thank you. And I guess I will, we'll answer live with the questions in the Q&A. I guess I can facilitate that just so I saw it, if you don't mind, Tarana. So Jim, this is a question for you. Fatima says, thank you for this session. My name is Fatima. I am a youth development specialist at Youth Opportunities Unlimited in London, Ontario, I assume. We offer employment and education support for youth, and we're hoping to engage more Indigenous youth in a meaningful way. Jim, you mentioned how important representation is, seeing themselves reflected. What are some things we can add to make our programs feel more culturally safe and representative, so Indigenous youth feel seen and included?
Well, I think having images of Indigenous people, I think is, maybe on the walls, some posters and things that might seem kind of trite, but it does make a big difference. And I think not centering them out by asking them to talk about their culture. That's one thing that can really shut them down. If they don't know a lot about it, they'll shut it right down completely. So not to do something like that, but to maybe to play some contemporary Indigenous music, not necessarily powwow, because not everybody's a powwow dancer. And then just to begin to open dialogues about things like what are your favorite foods? What do you like to eat? And if they're having trouble in London, there is a wonderful organization called Atlosha, ATLOSHA, and they'll be able to help you out.
Thank you. I'm just looking up. That's ATLOHSA, right?
LOSHA.
LOSA.
Atlosha.
Atlosha. Yep, I found it. I'll share it in the chat box for everyone.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
I have a question to Jim. I remember you in your presentation, you mentioned about Indigenous youth leaving the reserves, and there's not a lot of opportunity for them to travel. And you mentioned something about tourist visa.
Ecotourism. That's some of them.
Ecotourism. What is that? Can you please?
Well, it's using the natural environment that's there. So the reserve land that's there with all the trees, the water, the animals, and bringing people in to teach them about what's on the land. So they're learning about culture, but they're also learning about the environment of that particular area, how to manage it properly. So it's like a working holiday in a sense. Well, they're not really doing any work, but they get taken around by canoe. They get to fish, maybe to hunt, to trap, to see how to skin hides. They learn all of these things that are the background. So some of these things are small employment opportunities for people on our reserve, and they begin to see them, begin to have an understanding of them.
Thank you. But what about youth traveling to the to visit, let's say, different programs in different regions from the reserves? What the option we can help them? How we can help them to visit our programs?
Well, I mean, all we can do is try to lobby the MPs and the MPPs for the area to raise the rates of funding for reserves. That's where the money would come from that they would apply for to travel, and to see if there's ways of increasing economic opportunities on the reserves. Are there jobs? Are there things that we could be doing there? Is there a need for a recycling job here? Can we create one? Can the youth work part-time here and make a little bit of extra money, take some pride in themselves by cleaning up their reserve and doing things like that? So there's lots of stuff going on that they can do if they want to. They just have to The government has to be motivated.
Very much. I would like to ask the audience, if you have any questions, please raise your hands and open your mic and use the opportunity to ask the question, because we all can see it is the difficult steps for all of us to reach out. Indigenous service providers, Indigenous youth in general, connecting people, trying to create partnership, collaborative projects.
Yes, sorry, I just have one more question. I guess more of a, a solution kind of to this problem that CICS at least has when we try to connect with Indigenous organizations in the past with their youth. So one of the, I guess, main things we wanted to do in our programming is to connect newcomer youth and Indigenous youth, right? I think that's a fruitful experience to have them together to kind of share some I guess learnings with each other, as I mentioned earlier, is a very important piece of, our programming. So we've tried to do that in the past where I think we started, we thought having our space at CICS to have them come over to, because we have a large gym space at our center, and we're hoping to kind of get sports, right, as like intersecting way to have them connect and kind of build that connection. However, we did, when we invited them over, I think everything was kind of sorted. We kind of communicated something clearly. Unfortunately, that didn't fall through because nobody showed up, right? So I was just wondering, is there any solution, not really solution to that, but just kind of picking both Sam and Jim's brain as to how we can make that happen, and what could we have done to kind of ensure that they showed up, or try to not make, again, as the previous question kind of pointed out, how can we make it more of an inclusive environment for them to feel comfortable to come? Because obviously we didn't know why they didn't show up, but I was just wondering what's a better way to make it more attractive or more appealing, and to encourage them to show up to our programs. So I guess I'll start with Jim.
I would say provide food.
Yes, food is definitely a good option.
Definitely, yeah, no, seriously, make sure that you're providing food. Put that quite clearly. Maybe the biggest writing on the posters, you're providing food. A lot of these youth don't get proper nutrition. And they're always looking for a place to get something to eat. So if they can get some decent food, they'll show up, and they may be engaged enough to stick around. But that'll certainly get them in the door.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Thank you, Jim. Sam?
Yeah, my thing is just they have to have something that maybe just not the best part, but somebody there that they like look up to, or somebody there that they be like, oh, I want to meet this person. That's one thing that with some of my basketball camps I do for different school boards and stuff like that. They have a couple weeks before I'm coming there to do a basketball camp or workshop. They have like my poster up. I played Division I basketball, stuff like that. And the time that I came, just that double the amount showed up. They usually probably have like 15. They had like about 32 kids showed up. So having something like that, and also food is very important. As I said before, food is very important. Something for them to just have game, but something for them to look forward to, saying, okay, I want to meet this guy, or this person's tall, he played this, he did that. So something just to bring them in like that, Yeah. Just not just the basketball court, just not the basketball court, something they'll like to meet and do something, and somebody that can engage with them and talk with them. I think that you'll have more kids come to that.
Thank you, Jim and Sam, for answering that. I feel like both are very important pieces to kind of keep in mind. If we didn't have food, so I think that was a great suggestion, Jim, in terms of how we can get people moving and kind of come into our program and have that interaction, right? Yeah, so that's my question. Thank you. Anyone else have any questions? Feel free to unmute or raise your hand.
I see Mariam Imran. Please, you can open your mic and.
Thank you, Tarana. Thank you so much for having this webinar. It really has been very, very informative. I think all of us in our own capacity are trying to understand more about Indigenous culture. We want to appreciate it more, we want to recognize it more, and we're trying to understand it better. So thank you very much for this wonderful effort. I do have a question for Jim and Sam. Either one can answer the question. I represent an organization called the Career Foundation, and we have recently initiated a youth engagement program called the Youth Thrive program, which really wants to serve the Indigenous and the underserved youth communities by providing Canadian youth with professional skills development workshops and also meaningful volunteer placement opportunities with our other nonprofit partners. Now, I do know for a fact that we have been trying very, very actively to engage Indigenous youth. We have a dedicated outreach placement specialist team that is working exclusively with Indigenous organizations as well as Indigenous youth. And I had the pleasure of traveling with these outreach team members to Thunder Bay also, to engage with Inagbe, which is Indigenous organization. I just wanted to inquire really, despite our very, very best efforts and persistent efforts, we have not had a very high success rate in converting Indigenous youth to participate in this program, where we are trying to place them in meaningful volunteer opportunities. I did want some insights from Jim, if he could possibly share. What would you suggest? What kind of volunteer placements do you think would appeal to Indigenous youth, where we would see a higher success rate in converting them, where they would want to be a part of this program?
Well, I think one of the big issues that you're dealing with is that they don't know you. They don't know you. They don't know your organization, and there's a history of trauma associated with organizations that they don't know. Even ones they do, the federal government, provincial government, municipal, you name it. So it's really difficult to build a relationship. It's going to take more than one trip. You've got to be persistent. And you've got to ask them, what do you need? Don't tell them what they need. Ask them what they need. Ask them. They will tell you what they need when they feel comfortable. That's the advice that I would give right now.
Thank you so much, Jim. And if I could just sort of ask another question. If we were to make this program truly meaningful for Indigenous youth, what kind of volunteer placements do you think Indigenous youth would be most interested in participating in?
Well, that really depends, because I mean they're involved in so many things, in music and art and fashion and design and in building and all sorts of things. So they're just like regular youth. They're just some of their opportunities are restricted because of where they live and who they are. But they're just like regular kids. Their minds are always expanding. They're always looking at different things that they might be able to take part in. So I think almost anything you could come up with, but certainly government relations, the law, health, ecotourism, anything along that line would be great.
Thank you so much, Jim. And in your opinion, do you think these young Indigenous youth would be agreeable to traveling out of their reserves if we were to fund them, to bring them to volunteer placement opportunities, which are in the urban center, so they may successfully be able to participate in those?
They might. You're going to have to talk to their family. You're going to have to, again, it's a matter of trust. There's so many organizations that when a reserve is in trouble or whatever, or they perceive something, an organization will fly in, they'll be there one time to kind of mop up, and they leave, they don't come back. So it's really hard to build trust. So you have to go back several times. But you'll be successful if you go back several times.
You were doing that. Thank you so much, Jim. Appreciate your feedback. Thank you.
I do want also to hear Sam's perspective. Sam, you work directly in Toronto, right? And you
Yes.
have some access
Yeah.
working with Indigenous youth. Can you provide any perspectives to those?
Yeah, Jim says some more words I was gonna say. Like you can't just go one time. You gotta be persistent with it. You gotta ask them what they'll like, what they need, what they're like, if to come be part of be part of the program. Just yeah, pretty much just get out to them, and you got to go more than once. You got to be persistent with them, just like how I said before. You got to be persistent, reach out to them as much times as possible, ask them what they need, the services that they need, things like that. So just be persistent at the end of the day.
Thank you so much, Sam. Thank
No
you.
problem. No problem.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, Cynthia, we hear you. Do you have a question?
Just a comment. I just now was able to allow my microphone, and I don't see the chat in my desktop to use the chat button. But I just wanted to say that we're an organization in London, Ontario. Our organization is called No Kikwe, and we're an employment and education center, and we do serve Indigenous and non-Indigenous folks. All the things that the last commenter had said, if you're located in London, I would love to connect. I am Indigenous from Oneida Nation of the Thames, and I have connections to the 3 local Indigenous, which is Oneida, Chippewa, and Munsee, as well as urban Indigenous here in London. So if anyone would like to connect with me, you can find me at No Kikwe.
Hi, Cindy. Can you hear me? This is Fatima.
Hi, Fatima.
Hey, okay, I would love to connect. Could you spell out your company for me or even provide me your email if you're comfortable with that?
Yes. So my email is Cindy, CINDYMC
Yep.
at Nokikwe, NOKEEKWE
KWE, no Kikwe, and then
.com.
.ca or .com.
Cynthia,
Yeah, I would love your lived experience. That would be amazing. Thank you.
Cynthia, I enabled the chat room. Please type your email there so everyone can access. And if you have a website to share, or if you would like to jump in and provide some idea, comments on the question was asked so far, it would be nice to hear your perspective as well.
Okay, so I've added my email and the organization name. I don't have time to share too much information, but if you want to connect, that's totally okay. I'm open to, be able to support any way we can. And obviously networking. I do have to hop off because I do have a meeting. But there's my details.
Thank you very much, Cynthia.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Does anyone has any other questions? I don't see the hands. Nikki, please.
Oh, yes. So I think Jim and also Sam, you all have a lot of experience working in different communities. So just wondering, do you have can share more like what's the key challenges Indigenous youth face in like urban setting like Toronto, and also like what do these challenges different from the Indigenous youth living in their reserve? Just want to understand more what like the challenges from their perspective, and if we have a chance to work with them in the future, like just keep in mind to understand more. Yeah, thank you.
Or the Indigenous that we work with, there's a lot of things that they can get in, especially in Toronto. A lot of violence, crime, drugs, crime, a lot of things they could get into in Toronto. So we try to keep them engaged in like something positive, something they do, keep in touch with them, reach out to them, and try to run as much programs as we can run. Advocate for them. So, have programs that they'll like, they have food and interested things that they'll want to come and bring their friends, and just something that they will be like, excited to come to look forward to come through every week. So those are some of the things that we do. Because if you don't keep them engaged, if you don't keep them, keep coming in, they're gonna float, and other things are gonna grab their attention, other things that's not positive. So those are some of the things that we do.
Yeah, I would agree with Sam, and I think that on the if you're looking at the reserves, I mean, they are, depending on where they are, some of them are fly-in, some of them are drive-in, but they usually have a minimum of services. Education is not there, and so if they don't have a community center, it's really, really hard to engage the youth. If they've got a community center, at least they've got a spot where they can get the youth to come in and maybe get some elders to work with them or some knowledge keepers, whatever. But that community center is really vital. And that's the one thing that they have in the city that they don't have on a lot of reserves or community centers. So that's really important. Access to Wi-Fi is certainly a problem for some of them. Even being able to afford a computer is another barrier for them.
Jim, what about the language they usually use? You mentioned that the schools at the reserve until the sixth form, some of them ninth, are those schools in English, or it is in
English.
in
English primarily, yeah. There's more and more that are becoming full language schools in the traditional languages, but it's a slow turnaround, but it is happening, yes. Not so much in urban areas, but on reserves, yes. They're getting more total immersive language programs.
Nikki, can you also please copy Jim's website? I was just thinking that just idea throughout all this discussion conversation, if some youth program would reach out to you or Sam, would you help them to draft a concept, a proposal, and implement this step by step if they would like to reach out to Indigenous youth or bring them in, help them to design the art class or any other training class they would be interested? Is that can be a good way starting this engagement with your help and Sam's help?
Sure, I'm open to helping out whoever needs help.
Yep. Yeah, it sounds good.
As well as when you exit the Zoom, you will see the page. It will should pop up on your screen. If you can spend 2-3 minutes of your time filling out the questionnaire and also suggesting us what next you want to hear, you want us to bring to your attention and share and learn together, please feel free to let us know. If there's no any question, I would think that it is probably the time we can end the session. I would like to thank all participants, everyone in this place. Do you see my screen still there? No?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So I would like to thank Sam, Asholi, Jim Adams. I would like to thank Nikki, helping us to connect with Jim. Thank you, Kevin, for your partnership. I have great pleasure working with you, creating those sessions. And it has been a pleasure working with you, Sam. It's not first time we work together. And I look forward, Jim, working with you more closely and then helping other youth service provider to help Indigenous and newcomer youth to connect.
Okay.
Thank you very much, everyone.